Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our weekly briefing presented by the Emergency Leadership Team. I'm Dr. Ruth Jackson, Vice President for Academic Affairs, and I'm joined by the other members of the Executive Policy Group, Mrs. Teresa Powell, Chief of Staff, Chief Mario Holland, LUPD, Dean Joshua Busby, Student Affairs, and Dean Joshua Snavely, School of Business. Also joining us today is President Kent Smith. So in today's webinar, we'll give you the updated status for COVID-19 in our area. We will talk through our fall semester updates. We'll review the campus levels and operational postures for the university. And then we'll talk about the way we're pivoting and preparing for spring 2021. And as always, we will close by focusing on resilience. So now I'll ask Chief Holland to provide the COVID-19 update.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As of noon today, for Oklahoma, the total cases for COVID-19, there was a 13.3% weekly increase. For the total active cases for Oklahoma, there was a 44.9% weekly increase. The number of deaths in Oklahoma was an increase of 6.5%. For Logan County, the total cases was 13.7%, and the total active cases for Logan County was 65%. And the unfortunate news, there were 3 deaths in Logan County reported this week. For the university total, for cases active, there are 50, or I'm sorry, for total cases, there are 50. And for the university overall, the total number of active cases are 7. And now I'd like to introduce President Smith for a welcome and to provide some important information to you all.
Doc, you're muted, President Smith.
Oops, sorry. Good old technology. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for being with us, for logging in and being with us for these most important updates. Just an example of how technology can be good and can be bad, but I am officially unmuted. I'd like to talk with you about a number of items today as fall semester comes to a close. And those items are as we transition to remote learning, as our students will do following this week, winter break, campus preparations that we are in the midst of, certainly holiday safety reminders, and finally planning for spring 2021. For the transition to remote learning, as we know, at the end of this week, students living within residential housing will be departing our campus, at least the Langston campus, to complete the remainder of the semester remotely. Our faculty and our staff will remain on campus following the Thanksgiving break through the end of the semester. So for our students who are logged in today, please know that should you need to reach out to faculty and staff following Thanksgiving, our faculty and staff will be on hand on campus to assist you and provide resources and support. Some have still asked, why are students departing campus early to minimize? Well, why are students departing early? The reason is to minimize their travel between Thanksgiving and the winter holidays, and as a result to decrease the possibility of spread of COVID-19 within our given campus communities. Students, as you depart campus, we have asked for you to do several things. One, hopefully you have pre-registered for the next semester for spring 2021, and which means you have a balance of $200 or less, or you have been cleared by the Office of Enrollment Management. And even if you are departing campus and have made arrangements, we are calling upon you to pack your belongings and to leave them within your space, to take any valuables that you deem necessary with you. That's really important because we have made a decision that we are going to sanitize every space, and the materials that will be used, the spray that will be utilized for the sanitation could cause discoloration or the deterioration of some of your items. Hence why we've provided boxes and are calling upon you as all students who are leaving items within your apartments to pack them up and to put them aside so that they can be protected. So really, really important there. As to holiday safety reminders, really important for all of us this holiday season. And as someone who just spent this past weekend planning and thinking about what the holidays would look like, both from a Thanksgiving standpoint, but also a Christmas standpoint, but holidays nonetheless, I just wanted to make a special plea to all of you that just because we're home or we're with loved ones, that we still have an obligation, hopefully, to not only keep ourselves safe, but our families safe, preventing the spread by continuing to wear masks, continuing to not participate in large gatherings, having safe social distancing. And I cannot emphasize enough the importance of washing our hands more than we ever have with warm water and soap continuously and very, very often. The final piece that I'd like to discuss is very, very brief, but certainly it involves the planning for spring 2021. I have been asked by a number of students and even faculty staff whether or not we plan to return in the spring, and that answer at present is certainly yes. We do plan to have students on campus in the spring 2021 semester and to operate while a little bit differently, very similar to how we've operated this past semester. With that being said, I have called upon the EPG to build upon plans for the spring 2021 semester, and those will be released in greater detail on November 30th of this month. The team will be sharing a preview of that framework, which you will hear very, very shortly. I just want to give a personal shout out to each and every one of you to say thank you for the work that you have done this semester. I certainly have seen the numbers on other campuses and in other businesses increase drastically. And I think a lot of what we've seen in terms of safety has been a direct result of each and every one of us doing our part to socially distance, to wear masks, but to provide safety for our community. And I want to thank all of you for doing so. I now would like to ask Dr. Jackson to share more on what we expect as a preview for our Protect the Plan update. Dr. Jackson.
Thanks, President Smith. As President Smith just shared, we will be releasing an update to our Protect the Pride plan at the end of the month on November 30th. The plan will include additional details, including a new campus level and operational posture, which we will share in further detail shortly. Now I'll ask Dean Busby to review the campus levels and operational postures that we're currently utilizing.
Good afternoon. And so on last week, there was a question in the open forum about the campus levels. And so Dean Snavely did address those questions and provide answers. But what we wanted to do was to reiterate that this week. And so the level one is the campus level that essentially where we were pre-COVID, right? So coursework was traditional instruction. Students were in class, faculty members were in class. We hosted any and all event on campus with no type of restrictions relative to attendance. Housing was regular occupancy and operations, including up to double occupancy in Young Hall, which is our only traditional style dormitory. And then we had regular access relative to campus access. So the East Gate, the South Gate, the North Gate, all accesses to campus and entrances to campus were open. And of course, from a research perspective, all research activities were as business as usual. But of course, that decision threshold falls, of course, in the case of an endemic and not the current pandemic that we're in. All right, and so that's level one. Moving on to level two is where we currently are as it relates to the coursework being flex, hybrid, web instruction with enhanced protocols and safeguards as it relates to events. Any campus events and meetings can potentially be hosted up to 10 people attending with enhanced protocols and safeguards. Of course, we are strongly recommending virtual delivery on all of those, as well as meetings on campus. Housing is, of course, regular occupancy with enhanced protocols and safeguards, along with that single occupancy in Young Hall, which is our only traditional dorm. And then as it relates to operations, of course, it's as we currently are operating with reduced access and hybrid operations with enhanced protocols and safeguards to where only our south entrance is open. The south gate is open. And then, of course, from research, all research activities as well are occurring with enhanced protocols and safeguards. And so, of course, the level of the disease relative to the thresholds and what has taken us from level one to level two, of course, is the current pandemic that we are in. And also, we're continuing to monitor our Langston University case level that our active cases are between 0% and 3% of a campus site or location. And at this time, I will turn it over to Chief Holland to talk through level three.
Thank you, Dean. So for level three, additional parameters where the protocols or guidelines were put in place to ensure that we are protective of our community and of our faculty, staff, and student body as well. And so for level three, if conditions were to worsen, and certainly, hopefully, they do not, that would entail that coursework would be remote and web only, strictly online. There would be no in-person meetings or events whatsoever. Pertaining to housing, the regular occupancy, there would be enhanced protocols and safeguards, single occupancy in traditional dorm rooms as well. And there would be restricted access and significant telework as well. Pertaining to research, all research activities with enhanced protocols and safeguards would also be included. With level four, same. This would be very, very drastic. No in-person meetings, everything would be remote and online as well. Emergency occupancy only with strict protocols and safeguards pertaining to housing. The operations, restricted access, mandatory teleworking with authorized and limited exceptions. And with pertaining to research, restricted research activities with authorized and limited exceptions as well. So with that, I'll ask Dean Snavely now to share and describe the new campus level and operational posture guidelines for the spring 2021 semester, which will be released on November 30th. Dean.
Thanks, Chief. It really goes back to what Dr. Smith mentioned, and we've been getting through channels both on Dean Busby's side from a student affairs and a student life perspective, from Dr. Jackson's side on academic affairs, both faculty and the student experience in academics, that we're all struggling with this balance, right, of that posture we're in now, where there's very limited face-to-face interaction. It's been very safe, as Dr. Smith mentioned. We've been able to keep those case numbers down. But what he asked us to do was to examine, is there another level or another posture that we could find with safety that would allow us to, in a prudent way, increase some of those interactions. And again, that's all reliant on case numbers and case counts. So what we're looking to do, and we'll be releasing, as many have noted, later this month, is what will be a fifth level. It will be in between level 1 and level 2. and it will allow for, in a safe and a prudent way, some increases. And we're going to balance that through some of the things we're going to talk about. So I'll outline a few aspects of what that level might look like and what we're working on. What we know is important. Our faculty have told us, Dr. Jackson has heard it from faculty and students alike, is that everyone wants a little bit more interaction, right? So how do we do that? How do we create that safely? And so we're examining rotating schedules, using larger rooms. We're looking to invest in additional technology that might facilitate that. All of our goals in this new level will be, how do we create increased interaction safely? So again, we're going to go through those 5 different items that we have in the posture. So first is this coursework, I've outlined that. Next is events. So we hear this often with Dean Busby's team, from AD Rogers and athletics, right? We came to Langston to have an experience. Difficult to have an experience in a pandemic. And we certainly won't be able in the spring to return to normal activities. But we're looking at ways that we can, with continued safety protocols, bring a couple of those items back in a safe way. And we've been actually, over the last few weeks, for example, in athletics, we've been piloting a few opportunities with men's and women's basketball, and increased our testing and screening there to see if we could get to a place where we could restart those activities. So that would be a big part of this portion of the level, is increasing events, but doing so in a safe way, which might require, pretty rigid screening and additional testing. As we've seen in other levels of college academics and athletics, the NCAA, they have limited capacities. We've seen that at the professional level. So that's something we're examining. Again, we're not returning to normal, but we do think, with all that we know now about COVID, all of the resources, our partners that we've built over the last few months, that there is a way for us to increase some of these items in a safe way. Next is housing. For the most part, housing will remain pretty much the same as it is now. We'll keep the traditional dorms the same in the spring, but we're looking and planning to increase the quantity and quality of our quarantine spaces. As we see numbers increase, it will be critical that we have additional spaces to provide to students or staff if necessary. We also want to increase the quality. This is one of our first lessons of COVID, and you'll, I think, hear a little bit more about this later on in our reflecting on resilience section. But we hadn't given a lot of thought to what it would be like at the very beginning to be in a quarantine space. And we've made a lot of investments in that ever since. And we're continuing to do that, supplies and resources and the overall feel of those units. So we're going to continue that investment. And importantly, we're looking at how we continue to increase testing throughout the semester. We know a lot more about testing. We have a lot more access to testing. And that will be an important component. It could be a significant part about returning to campus in January and February as people return, as having a testing process. And we're also looking and working with the CDC on what's called a surveillance testing program. That's not the NSA or anything like that. That's basically taking samplings of tests throughout the campus to monitor active case levels. So we believe all of these things will be critical if we want to have a posture that's a little more friendly to events and in-person interactions. It will come with a balance of increased activities like we just talked about. And Mrs. Powell is going to walk us through the other aspects of this new structure and potential level framework.
Thanks, Dean Sneevely. So the one that we snuck in on you here is dining, which you won't find outlined specifically in our campus operational posture levels. However, we as a group did some polling of students and found that the dining experience is becoming something that is really lacking, not the quality of the dining, but just that camaraderie. And the sense of community is something that they miss. So we are exploring some opportunities of providing maybe some small socially distanced group dining experiences or individual dining experiences, just so you have a spot that's not your room where you can sit and enjoy your meal. So we are looking into that and finding a way to safely do that. We won't be opening the cafeteria, but just finding some space perhaps within the great room where we can set aside some tables just for some small groups. So we will be looking forward to developing that more with our partners in Sodexo. For now, the dining operations in this new level will remain consistent with level 2. That means it will still be the grab and go style, which will be continuous as long as we stay in this posture of having to have any safety protocols in place. The only time that we'll go back to our normal dining experience would be if we are back to level 1, which is a general safe campus posture with no restrictions if we are in that endemic level of disease. The next portion here is the operations. And so some changes that are entailed in this portion specifically, we're looking at adding some additional team members to assist us with contact tracing and health screening. We've already begun this process. In fact, we've had some assistance with this through some contracting, and we're looking to build that out and develop that even further. So we're going to start building a stronger, a broader team rather, to help us with the contact tracing. As you might imagine, that takes a lot of man hours. And so we're working to build a team that's going to be able to assist in doing that on a continual basis. We're also exploring the feasibility of hiring some additional staff to help us with the welcome centers. Those of you who have visited our campus, if you live on campus, if you work here on the Langston campus, when you come to our campus in Langston, you'll see that we've got our friendly officers in the welcome centers. Well, in order to free them up to do patrolling and to respond at a moment's notice to calls, we are shifting our focus to potentially hiring some additional assistants to be within those welcome centers, be stationed in those welcome centers, so that it's not our police force managing that portion of our protocols. So we are looking into that to try to help give Chief Holland some relief and get his officers, give them some more opportunity and time to patrol, which is what they really enjoy doing on top of the welcome center duties that they're facilitating for us now. In this new level, we're going to continue to monitor the campus access. It will not be as restricted as we saw in level 3 or 4. If you remember back to April through about June 30th, July 15th, we really restricted our campus access on all campuses. It will not be a restriction to that extent. We will still be monitoring campus access. Visitors should continue to request access through our campus access request form, but we will still be monitoring the traffic on all of our campuses in this level. Next would be research and travel. We thought it would be important to include travel because we have gotten some questions about travel. For a moment, it looked like travel might be more feasible. Now that's looking like it's not going to be quite a possibility like we thought in terms of research travel, travel for conferences and things like that. Most of those have moved to a virtual format, which makes it easier for us to manage, certainly, and getting people to participate in those opportunities. For the research components of the university, those will remain operating as they are now with the safety protocols that are already implemented by the researchers that are using those today. So you won't see much change there. Travel will continue to be restricted. So we are, of course, prohibiting travel to sort of the hotspots as the CDC would recognize them. We're trying to ensure that we minimize travel to the best of our ability. If it's something that is required by a grant For example, we may make a concession. The other concession could be, of course, team travel. If we are able to get our student athletes into a posture where they are traveling for competitions, all of the travel will still need to go through the appropriate protocol, which will require the travel authorization request to be approved through the appropriate chain of command and approved by the Office of the President. So those will still be in place. Finally, public health and safety. So we're going to continue the public health and safety measures that we've implemented throughout our plan that are all throughout the Protect the Pride plan as it stands now. And you'll see that when we release our new plan on November 30th. These are all to facilitate the health and well-being of all of our campus community. So you'll see continued social distancing where possible in this new level. Of course, the enforcement of masks in indoor spaces where social distancing is difficult. So stairwells, hallways, restrooms, elevators, all of those components outlined in our plan. Reinforcement of good personal hygiene. As President Smith said, washing our hands so important as we continue through this pandemic. And we will be increasing our campus COVID-19 testing, as Dean Snavely stated. So we are looking into exploring some surveillance testing as well as the possibility of some more routine testing for our population. So now I will give it to Dr. Jackson to just open it up for some discussion.
Thank you, Mrs. Powell. As she mentioned, we'll pause at this point and entertain any questions that you may have. Please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A or in the chat. Looks like someone attempted to post a question, but we only have a portion of it. Okay, we have a comment. Dean Patterson Harris said, I recommend signage reinforcing that the masks should also cover your nose. That's a great point. Dean Patterson Harris, on a previous webinar, you may recall, we did a segment on how to properly wear a face covering and a mask. And so I think we can continue to reinforce that and perhaps in our signage include something that focuses also on the proper way to wear it. So thanks for that feedback. So we also have a question for faculty who are approved to work remotely due to a high risk category. Will those accommodations carry over into the next term or will they need to be updated? That's a great question. And we'll work with student and employee services to make sure that those accommodations are updated. They expire at the end of this semester, and faculty and staff would need to contact Mrs. Buckley and Student and Employee Services if an accommodation is needed.
So I see a question about the housing application from Ms. Barnes. Yeah, Ms. Barnes, we found this out late last week about that meal plan option, and essentially what it's not allowing you to do is to move forward. So we're waiting on the vendor. We've put in a work order with the vendor to fix that. So it's our hope that within the next 24 to 48 hours, that'll be fixed. So please make sure to check back. And of course, you can always email luhousing@langston.edu, but we are aware of that and we're working to try to get that taken care of as soon as possible. Thank you so much for that comment and question.
Okay, we have another question. Will shifting plans change any holiday closure schedules? And so as of now, we do not believe that our schedule will be impacted based on the university's operational posture. We've made a significant investment in a number of tools that allow us to continue business using technology. And so right now, we don't anticipate any holiday changes or campus closures if our operational posture should change. Okay. We'll continue to monitor the chat. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in and we'll revisit them before we wrap up today's webinar. So at this point, we have our segment reflecting on resilience. One of the things that we continue to hear from students, staff, and faculty is, the questions about concerns, questions about operations, and just kind of what do we know about COVID-19 and how has it impacted our campus community? And so we reached out to a few people who graciously agreed to share a little bit about their experiences with COVID-19. So at this point, I would like to welcome Ms. Jada Meads, our SGA president, and Ms. Elaine Preston from the Office of the President. Thank you both for joining us to talk a little bit about what you have experienced as survivors of COVID-19. So let's start with you, Jada. Tell us a little bit about your personal experience, your personal COVID-19 story.
Well, I want to start off by saying it is real. I know that there is a lot of talk in the air that COVID is not real. Oh, whatever rumors they're saying, it is real. But in my personal opinion, it affects everyone differently. Thank God that I'm here. Some aren't as fortunate. It's serious, but thank God that I'm here, honestly. So that's just how I feel.
So, Madam President, thanks for being with us. If you could, can you talk about the experience of the notification and contact tracing process that you encountered with the university?
Well, the university is serious about making sure that you're able to let everyone know that you are around, that hey, I'm positive, or I may be positive, so you may need to quarantine in order to make sure that there isn't a spread as far as COVID goes. I know I reached out to you, Dean, let you know what was going on, and from there on, I was sent a file. I was supposed to type everyone that I've been around, whether that's work, in classes, or in passing. It was a pretty swift process. I know that you all reached out to those that I was around as well pretty quickly to make sure that either they went and got tested or they were put on quarantine.
And Lainey, if you could tell us about your experience in contracting COVID-19 and also your experience with the contact tracing and some of what you encountered both from the university as well as from the health department.
Sure. So I am still in recovery. I actually just recently had COVID. Unfortunately, the whole month of October, it affected me greatly. Versus some other people where they didn't have very many symptoms. I seem to have them all. And so I think my story is a little unique because I did come into contact with somebody that tested positive, found out that day, and immediately contacted the office, as well as the student workers that we have in our office. And then went home and filled out the contact tracing form per the ELT, everything that they go over, I went ahead and filled it out right away. And it made me think like, wow, okay, this is real. Who have I been in contact with? Because I just didn't know. And of course, I wasn't feeling any symptoms at that time. But it, in a sense, kind of scared me because, of course, you know, the students, as the adult, I don't want to get the students affected with anything. So filled out the form. I did not have any symptoms for a couple of days. And then actually that night when I found out somebody that I was around tested positive, I went and got a rapid test immediately. It was negative. And I then didn't have symptoms until 2 days later where I started to get a bad headache. And then that week I tested 3 other times and tested negative. I knew something was wrong because I just wasn't feeling well. I ended up going back to the doctor, got another test negative, and they ended up testing me for the flu, and I had the flu A and B. And then 2 days later, it felt like I got hit by a truck, couldn't move, couldn't walk, and went back to the doctor and then tested positive. So my story is a little different because it took truly a week for me to experience the symptoms of COVID.
So thank you for that, Ms. Preston. So, Madam President, Ms. Meads, what was your communication with faculty like? Because of course, you know, you started out where I'm sure you were feeling pretty good, right? And then maybe some symptoms came on, and you might have had some struggles, if you will. Of course, can you? I haven't experienced it, but can you talk a little bit about your communication with your faculty members?
Well, knowing that COVID, they say it comes through like a thief in the night, which it does. I immediately contacted the chair of my department, Professor Montella. And I know from there, I emailed the rest of my professors, you know, hey, unfortunately, I've been diagnosed with COVID. At this moment, I'm okay, but this is like day 1 or 2, and I'm not sure what the rest of the days may look like. So just giving you a heads up in case, you know, I disappear, because it lasts for 14 days. So it was pretty immediate because, you know, they can't, if you don't turn in your work, they can't do anything for you if you never communicated that you were sick or things like that. So.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I think Ms. Preston, kind of along the same lines, but of course, because you really spoke about almost the entire month of October, what was your communication like as well? And did you have to utilize the COVID leave that was offered by the institution?
So I did. Like I said, I wasn't experiencing anything right away, so I didn't really know what was going to happen. And then everything hit pretty quick. So for me, I definitely used the 2 weeks of leave that we were given. And then, of course, took more leave because I still had such bad symptoms and a fever. And then that's why, for me, it was so important that I filled out the contact tracing, because it really scared me because I didn't want anybody else to get anything that I had. But also during that time, the Oklahoma County called me almost every day to check on me, which was really nice for me because I live alone, of course, but that was just another aspect that I just did not know was going to happen.
Lainey, could you tell us more about, you said you talked a little bit about your symptoms. Could you tell us about your symptoms and also some residual effects that you've described?
Yeah, sure. So my breathing was extremely bad. It felt like I had weights on my chest. I know I had heard people mention that before, but I truly did not know what that meant until I went through it. Talking on the phone, I was wheezing. So I didn't really talk on the phone, just to my mother or you or Dr. Smith. And so that was really hard for me. And I don't remember a lot of things because I was truly out of it. I was so tired. And I think Jada mentioned it before or in our conversations that you just felt like you're on high, like some type of like medication, and you're, you know, like from the hospital or something, and you're just truly out of it. So some of those things I don't remember, but I do remember not being able to walk. So going from my bed to the couch or little things like that, I was out of breath. It was hard for me to walk. I was sore constantly, almost felt like I had whiplash. So I was always holding my head. I could not sit up to write an email. So I'm sorry for any of you that are watching and my responses were slow. I tried to do email on my cell phone because it was near me, but I could not sit up to write email. I couldn't sit up to eat because I was so dizzy. And then one of the things that I experienced was very bad eye aches. So little things that you take for granted of looking left and right without moving your head up and down. I could not do that at all. So anytime I tried to, I don't know, watch TV, you know, just to entertain myself, I couldn't do it. I had to keep the blind shut the whole time. And then since then, this is my third week back into work. I found myself pulling papers away from my eyes, not knowing what was going on, just thinking, oh, my eyes are just tired from, you know, getting back into work. Had an eye appointment. And as you can see, I'm wearing glasses now. My blood pressure was extremely high, I guess, stroke level during COVID, which is weird for me as being someone pretty healthy, working out all the time, mid-30s. My blood pressure really, really was high during that time. And since then, it's been back to normal. However, my eyes have been affected. So I have abnormal blood vessels in both eyes, and it has been inflamed. And so around my retina, everything's blurred. My vision is blurred. So now I have to wear glasses on top of my contacts. So yes, I'm still going through it. Those are some of the symptoms that I'm still struggling with and trying to figure out. And my breathing too. I haven't been able to work out like I used to.
Thanks for sharing that, Lainey.
Madam President, let's talk a little bit about your quarantine experience and kind of what you learned and what you've taken on with leadership from the SGA and the support from SGA, what you are doing now for students relative to those kind of, you call them your COVID baskets, but what SGA has put together. So how did some of that come about?
So I was one of the I feel like one of the very first round of students who received or, you know, caught COVID. So it was a new experience for the school. So, you know, we kind of just, you know, kind of hit the ground running. I noticed, so I'm an RA in Centennial. And so, you know, all my bedding that I had with me is, of course, twin size bedding. And in the quarantine unit, it was a full size bed. So I know I had to revert into I had to buy new sheets. I had to transfer like towels and things over with me, you know, a lot of movement that I felt like while you're sick, you probably shouldn't be doing because, you know, you're tired. I was very tired. So to flip it around, I know that experience wasn't really well for me. Luckily, I had a good support system. Not everyone here in Oklahoma has that. You know, people are from California and et cetera. Not everyone has a vehicle. Not everyone has that good support system. So as the president and SGA, we decided to go ahead and make really great. Can I grab a basket and actually show them?
Make it quick. We're recording.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody.
So here are the baskets, you know, really nice. We have toiletries, we have cans of soup, we have toothbrushes, we have soap, we have waters, Gatorade, razors. We even have crossword puzzles in there because, you know, quarantining for 2 weeks can be a lot on your mental health. So I just took everything that I experienced, and I know that you have to pour into everybody else, you know. Sometimes you have to lead the way. So that's what I decided to do as president. That's one of my great projects.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Thank
Well, we have a comment, and it says to Ms. Meads and Ms. Preston, glad you're both better, and thank you for sharing your experiences with us. I too thank you for joining us. Sometimes it's very different to put a face with all of the news that we've been hearing. Sometimes we can get a little immune to the news. And so when it's people that we know and we work with and see every day, it's a little bit different. So we really appreciate your openness and willingness to share with our campus community. We have plenty of comments applauding you both and glad you're here. So thank you for that. And thank you, Jada and the SGA for creating those baskets. That is leadership. And I know it added some creature comforts for students who are going through a difficult time.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of this webinar. We will not have a webinar next week. We hope that you will be enjoying your Thanksgiving. Our next webinar will take place Monday, November 30th at 3 o'clock, when we will dive more into the Protect the Pride plan.
Dr. Jackson?
Yes, sir.
I see that Dr. Mambula is on the call, on the Zoom, and yesterday was his birthday, and I would just like to take a special note to tell him a happy belated birthday. I did not get to reach out to him on yesterday, but happy 22nd birthday, Dr. Mambula. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to say happy birthday to him.
No interruption. So thank you everyone for joining us. And as always, take care, Lions.